Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And I'm your host and relationship coach, Fahima Mohammad. Welcome all of you streaming from all over Facebook, Sky, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I welcome all of you on the show tonight and thank you so much for watching. This is a live call-in show and you can call in on 01924 1083 and it's your standard network rate that will apply. I just want to also add that we have another topic tonight discussing spouses' careers, and with me to join in the discussion I have a special guest. Assalamu alaikum, we have Bushra Shaikh.
Wa alaikum salam, Fahima. How are you?
I'm very well and an absolute pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, honestly, it's my pleasure. I'm really, really excited about having the discussion today. I'm sure we're going to have a good 1 hour chat about the topic at hand.
Absolutely. It's really important. As you know, this is a show to highlight information and awareness for everybody to have better relationships. And whether or not you're already on relationships or you're looking for a new relationship, this is your platform. But I have to make you aware that if you are looking for a spouse, we are not matchmakers. If you want to download the app, SingleMuslim.com, please do so. And that's where you will find your amazing spouse. But we're here to just highlight and give you awareness of how to build yourself to come up to a platform so that we can actually address the challenges that surround us today. As you know, it's always been known that women especially support their spouses in their careers. But we are changing dynamics in the household today, where the women are also working and they are actually having their careers. We've always been educated, but now we're taking it to the next level. So before we actually continue with the show, we are going to be going into a short break for the adhan, but I'd like to get in one question to begin with, and that is to ask you, what is your idea of women today that are working?
So my idea today about women that are working, the thing is, so much has changed over, I'd say, the course of what, last 10, 20 years? I mean, 20 years at least. We have dual households, dual incomes. It's more expensive to live at the moment. You know, only a few households can maybe afford one income, just depending on how much they bring in every month. With everything that we see on television, through the media, we strive to have a particular lifestyle. And perhaps, let's say, one member of the team, let's just call it a team for now, can only bring a certain amount of income in, and that requires the other member to also go out there and work. So I think for women today, not only is it a need for them to bring in that income in order to achieve that lifestyle, it's also because they want to feel like they are contributing something in their life. Because I know that sometimes things can feel a bit kind of stagnant, especially when you've been in a partnership or relationship.
That's so true. And I really thank you for that introduction. And we will continue the discussion after the break. But I just want to remind the viewers, please do stay tuned. We have so much to discuss. And that was just an opening. And I just want to remind you again that this is British Muslim TV, Single Muslim Live, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. You want to download the app, please do so now. And you can actually look for your spouse. And if you want to dial in, please do so, 01924 231 083. Please do hold on to the call. Sometimes there is a queue, so please don't drop, and I will get to you. I promise you that. Just make sure that you're a little bit patient with me, and I'll try and get all your calls in. But I just want to also add that this is an amazing discussion, but it will be even more amazing with your input. And would love to hear all your voices, whether it's on the comments on YouTube, Facebook. So inshallah, we will see you. We will discuss more on this topic after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But we will see you definitely after the break. Okay, so Bushra, we are now also coming over to Instagram and we are continuing here. Thank you everyone for watching and we appreciate all of your support. Please do send in your comments and questions. It's really important that we have everyone having their input and their say. This is really important. You have experience of being a professional and it is quite challenging, and I'm sure you have peers around you, colleagues around you with all of this. And we're just trying to share insights so that we can help some of the issues and the challenges of especially Muslim women today that are working. I mean, I know that a lot of men are seen to be the breadwinners now. And even if they still are, there is still so much pressure on women to do everything just because they decide to work. And how fair is that in the household when there isn't a team sort of contribution? What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the first issue is about the men understanding the role of a woman who is a homemaker. So, because that's where it begins. I think a lot of the time men undervalue and undermine what it takes to run a household, especially when you have children. So I think that's the first thing. It's definitely about the mindset and what the man, I guess, starts to think in the beginning. Because a woman that chooses to stay home, and again, I use the word choose, it's because she chooses to stay home, to look after the children, build a home, to facilitate his career. Without that facilitation, he wouldn't be able to achieve the targets or the goals that he is aspiring to achieve. So someone's got to be home. So it has to fundamentally start there. We cannot underestimate, undervalue, and undermine a woman's position, whether it's a choice in career or whether it's a choice of staying at home and keeping the children happy, doing the school runs, doing the laundry. That is a full-time job itself.
Do you think that there is some sort of play with regards to external factors which may affect these sort of like negativity around supporting a wife that goes to work and helping her when she comes back from work? Do you think culture has something to do with it? Because I know as much as I see a lot of positive cases where men are, you know, open and quite happy to say that I'm going to go home to help my wife, I'm actually picking up the kids, whatever it may be. But again, there's a lot of pressure for them to keep up this sort of image. And even it's coming from their friends, but a lot of it's actually coming from their families, even their own mums. It's like, you shouldn't be the one doing this. Now, we gotta be real. We have to be real about this. And I just want to quickly, you know, just in a minute, because we're going to go back to the actual channel speaking, because we're going to be finishing our break. So what do you think of that? We'll continue the conversation even in more detail, obviously.
Look, you know, I think it's better to always talk really frankly about these things, because if you don't, you can't get your authentic voice heard and make a change. At the end of the day, those come from cultures and traditions. And sometimes just because it's labeled as a culture doesn't mean that it's correct. We have a lot of things to do, you see. And once a culture or tradition is instilled in the ideology as it being correct, in the future, that is taught over and over again. And just because it's taught doesn't mean it is right. So actually...
Definitely. I just want to say that we're going to be coming back on British Muslim TV, and we're going to continue the discussion live on British Muslim TV. So if you want to turn over, please do so now. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You're here watching Single Muslim live on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And I'm your host and relationship coach, Fahima Mohammad, and I'm here joined by Bushra Shaikh. Assalamu alaikum, Bushra. Thank you. Welcome back again.
No, you're welcome.
We were talking in the break about how the external influences do actually have an effect on a man actually helping and supporting his wife. I'm not going to obviously make it more about just only that sort of gender. We are going to bring it both ways, but these are unfortunately the issues and the challenges that we're having today. I have a lot of women that feel that if they do work, they're actually selling themselves short, because at the end of the day, they're having to do everything without the support. Secondly, some of the men are finding it difficult to even be that team player, because they look down upon in certain cultures for actually, you know, being someone who's helpful in the house. And it's really such a shame, because it can actually break sort of relationships unnecessarily. I just want to remind the callers, this is a live show. And if you want to have your input and say, please do call in on 01924 231 083. What is your thoughts on that, Bushra?
Well, firstly, actually, what I'm going to say is everything can be learned. So, for example, if you have a guy who's not very good with the house chores, who doesn't know how to turn the dishwasher off, I would tell you, just ask your missus how to do it, honestly, because one little thing that you say, actually, I may not be good at doing, but if I do it for her, it will help her, doesn't make you any less. I think men also have this element of pride and ego. They are embarrassed, I guess more so embarrassed a few years ago. I think things are changing, but they're
Yes.
embarrassed to tell their friends that they are supportive of those things at home. Actually, it's something to be incredibly proud of, because when you do decide to have a spouse and you want a relationship, you want a wife, vice versa, you go into a relationship as a team. You are building a future as a team. This isn't him or her or I and you. This is an us. So you need to begin with that. You know, that has to be the basis of everything. So when you guys do decide to take the roles of something, you need to have respect in those roles as well. I mean, it's such a varied topic and it's so much to talk about. So I hope we get to touch on like a lot today.
No, absolutely. And this is really something that it's really important, because people that are entering into relationships, they need to hear this, because they need to know what they're getting themselves into. As much as we have the highs of, being with somebody and finding that connection, we need to also be real. And this is what the show's about, to make it real so that you make those choices, eyes wide open as to what you're getting yourself into. And things have changed, and the women's role have changed. Do you think that also there is a difference between women supporting their husbands now as well? When they're at home, do you think sometimes there could be less support sometimes given because there's lack of understanding? Because I do hear that sometimes from my clients as well, when they come to me for couples coaching, for example, and there is a sort of like disconnect because there's no understanding. I don't really think that people generally, if women stay at home, they don't have an understanding, but this is kind of the consensus that we hear from the male. What is your thoughts on that?
I think what we have to look at, right, is the majority of couples are probably less self-aware than they should be. A lot of people are not doing progress with themselves. They're not growing enough, then they're not growing fast enough because they're not aware that these stages in their life happen. Especially if you're a lady or you're a young man that's got married when you're young. You're not the same person that you are when you're 20 and then when you are when you're 30. So we have to understand that in 10 years, a lot can change. So as a couple, you need to understand that that's going to happen. And what do you do at every stage when both of you are changing? Because ultimately you want to grow and change together rather than change and then split and be apart by the time you're 30 years old. And this is called cultivation. How do you cultivate a bond between two human beings? And this goes, like you said, Fahima, with understanding, communication, understanding who you are, and then communicating that to your potential partner that you are initially going to choose. Because it's silly going in blindly. You have to lay your cards on the table and tell the individual what you're expecting and what you want.
There is also an issue where if women now are taking on professional, highly sort of qualified careers, it is actually a little bit intimidating for men, or women feel that they generally marry their own match or above, whereas men, they don't mind. But I also find that sometimes doctors may say, I just want to marry another doctor because, they'll understand my work sort of ethics, or, a dentist for a dentist, or, whichever it may be. Do you think that that is actually causing a bit of an issue when it comes to maybe women that are taking on roles that's slightly higher than men, and it's actually delaying even people getting married?
Yeah, definitely. I think, what's happening is a lot of women are in powerful positions. And ultimately, because men and women are made in a way where men do have a different role to play in a marriage. I mean, I know that lots of women will argue about, but it is a fact. We are made, we're just not made the same. Women ultimately want a man to protect them. We do want a protector. I mean, as far as I know, and the number of women that I've spoken to, there is still an element to say, I want him to make me feel safe. And generally, sometimes that can't happen if the woman is the one who is in control, in charge, the most powerful one. Unfortunately, he will feel like he is, I guess he doesn't have a space, because as men, they do have this sudden urge. I mean, if we go back decades, we will know that women are the sort of softer ones. We're more emotional, we're more gentle. So we need that. And it's really important for people to understand that there needs to be a balance. And a lot of the times I've come across couples that have broken up and all their marriage is fractured because she doesn't understand that he's unable to communicate with her because he doesn't feel like his position is valued. So
That
it's
is
understanding.
that is such an important point. As you were talking, it did make me realize that actually, even though women today are in powerful positions, we still need to have a certain attitude. And even Islamically, our faith is there to guide us. And I'm not saying that we should downplay what we are, but at the end of the day, there's no harm in still letting the man, have his role, have his position, have that way of securing you. And it doesn't mean if they're not having that financial sort of like burden over you, because at the end of the day, even if they're not the breadwinner, they can still keep you safe. And I think women need to also understand that. And I think it's really important that we do bring it both sides, because it's not just about, men don't support their women. It's both ways. And I'm trying to make it really fair here, because we hear now women that are complaining that they're not getting married, but at the same time, they're not actually holding the space for a man to actually take control, be a little bit, in charge. And I don't mean as in rule your life. I mean, if they want to pull your chair open and open the door for you and say, you know what, let me open that lid for you because it's a little bit tough and I can do it, let them. It's not a big deal. It's not going to make you anything less either. So there's also that. It's
called being a gentleman. And those are the little things that we lose. Those are things that I think men still want to do today. And I think women should appreciate them. It doesn't make them less of a woman. Oh, I can hold my own door open. Let him open it for you. And those are little things that also builds love between two people as well,
No, it's really important. I just want to remind the viewers, this is a live call-in show. If you do want to have any comments or questions, please do call in. The number is at the bottom of your screen, 01924231083. If you are looking for a spouse, please do so on the SingleMuslim.com app. And there you'll find plenty of available partners that are potentially going to be your match. Remember that we are not matchmakers. I've had plenty of DMs and emails and people calling in, and I would love to set you up, but unfortunately that's not what we do. And I just want to highlight that, just to stop wasting anyone's time here, because at the end of the day, we're here to help you through challenges and raise issues each week, which is actually what's happening around us, so that we can discuss this to move forward together, because we need to build our communities. Our community is really important, and we are obviously wanting to integrate and we want to keep up. And our religion is actually quite forward thinking. It's just that we sometimes have an old mindset or an old tradition, which we're so scared to break. But actually, it's not about breaking those old traditionals. It's actually about building and having a growth mindset, so you can actually have a really fruitful relationship. What are your thoughts around when it comes to men that are looking for spouses today and finding it really difficult, because it's like literally sending out a CV when you're actually looking for somebody? And if the credentials are not there, I know a lot of people, they're like, if he doesn't have a degree, I'm not even talking to him. If he doesn't have that, I mean, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have their standards and their levels, but what are the expectations now compared to, a decade ago? And it is getting higher and higher, but isn't that to a certain extent quite detrimental to us moving forward in just finding that connection? As we were in this pandemic, we realized that it's so important for us to actually have, our priorities set. So, what's your insights on that?
I think, what, we have to stop looking for perfection, because it doesn't exist. And we're all individuals. So what we need to hone in on is understand what is the most important to us. So, for example, you may have a lady who believes that when she has her children, it's more important that her husband join in on that parenthood. Somebody that's going to change the nappy, somebody who's going to enjoy wanting to feed the child. You may have another lady where she wants to live a more luxurious lifestyle. So for her, an income and the amount of income is going to be more important. So those are crucial aspects. You're not going to get everything, Fahima. That's just the facts of life.
Yeah,
but what is, if you create a list, what is on the top of that list for you? And then that's how you start, by looking for your spouse. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to put something on the table, you are also going to expect something back on that table. So women who are perhaps not in full-time income, maybe sat at home, spending most of their time on YouTube or, doing stuff around the house, then want to find a man who's incredibly intelligent, earning lots of money. The first question he's going to ask is, what do you do? So you also have to give something in order to gain something. A lot of the time, you can't expect something for nothing, girls and guys. got to bring
That
something.
is so true. I'm so glad you said that, actually, because a lot of the times we are looking for so it's just like we need to basically have lots of interaction with the, but we really need to know that at the end of the day, we are here to help you. So please do call in. We would really love to hear your thoughts. We can have this conversation and we can really interact really well with the discussion. But it's really about you. The show's about you. What are your thoughts? What are your comments? We can sit here discussing, but we want to be here to help you with regards to your challenges. And I see all the comments out there on Facebook. I see all the issues that are out there. So they do exist and they are real. So we need to have your input. It would be really appreciative if you would actually call in and maybe have a discussion with us. The number's at the bottom of your screen: 01924231083. What are your thoughts? Come on, everyone needs to come in and get involved. So Bushra, as we were discussing, when it comes to women that are at home, remember, it doesn't mean that you have to be outside the house thinking that that's only a woman's role if they're having a career. Being a housewife, being a mum is also a career. And that's another thing that we need to obviously highlight. And there's a lot of pressure even on women today to actually go out to work when they don't even want to. And it's okay for them not to want to work as well. Some of their, if their partners are happy with them to be at home, it doesn't degrade them. So what would you sort of like guide, sort of individuals out there that are at home, and how would you create that close relationship between the partners supporting each other, even if they don't have the same career sort of goals and outcomes?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, firstly, like I said before, it's really important for everyone to understand, to highlight and put down what your expectations are from that individual. So, and as we know, being with somebody for 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, things will always change, and there are always going to be challenging parts, whether that's from the career, whether that's with children, all sorts of things. However, you've got to support each other no matter what, because what's going to happen at some point, if a couple is deciding to have children, that dynamic in that relationship is going to change. She is going to need your support, and you will probably need hers. So women, at the same time, you have to remember that when we also have children, we're not like, oh, now we're just staying at home. He also loses a little bit because we are now focused more on the kids. So in the beginning, he might have all of your undivided attention. He doesn't have that anymore. So I think as women, we need to support our men a little bit. And in the same breath, I think our men need to respect the fact that we can make an adjustment, like looking after the home. Because for a woman that's been in a career, to having children and being a stay-at-home mum is a huge transition. It's not easy. We lose sleep, we lose social life, social interaction, and the last thing we want is having problems within our home as well. So I think, again, Fahima, it's all about communication. We've got to know how to communicate, what we sound like, what words are we using, how are we building, what affirmations are we using to make each other feel good about those positions at that time in our life.
It's really interesting you say that, and I understand that mindset and the language that you're using about affirmations and doing that. But unfortunately, in our households today, and we're talking about the average household, and I'm not saying we don't have the education and the knowledge in there, but actually they can have all the education and profession outside the house, but when they come home, the cultures kick in. And unfortunately, we have that to worry about. I've had couples come to me that are GPs, doctors, there are consultants. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's basically, I just feel like at the end of the day, I just feel that they're not being understood in the home in the same way by their partners, by their families. And I do feel that the cultures do come in. It's expected for the wife, if they choose to work, that, oh, you're going to work now, you're going to come home, you're going to take care of the kids, you're going to do everything because that's not my job. And these are the kind of things that I have heard. So as much as we're talking, like as if to say we are, business, career, forward, thinking women in this day and age, it does not happen in our households. So how do we sort of move forward from that sort of mindset?
Yeah, it's really, really difficult. Look, what I'm going to say is that when you are already with your husband and you've been married, let's say for 5 years, the challenges are very different. Because like I said, if we go back to you starting in the beginning, like the initial stages of finding your spouse, this is when those parts are the most important. This is when you are picking who you want to spend the rest of your life with. because in 5 years' time, those challenges are going to present themselves. And you're going to say to yourself, oh my goodness, why did I not ask him that? Why did I not say to him, do you mind if I take some time out from work? Because you have men that want their women to work constantly. Even when she's happy, he also wants her to return to work. So you are going to find a way as well. So again, if we go back to people that are looking for a partner, ask the right questions, really find out what they think. Even if you have to go and meet their families, have conversations with their brothers, with their sisters, because you get a better idea of who the person really is. However, if you're in a marriage and it's been, I don't know, let's say 5 or 6 years, and you're facing these challenges, it is going to be more difficult. And more than likely or not, you will need an intermediary person. 90% of counselling will happen to these couples, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. These are things that can benefit a relationship, because two people being together forever is hard. It's not easy. So just be prepared of the challenges that are going to come. And it can either be incredibly stressful or it can be very, very exciting.
It's funny you say that, because a lot of people do not seek that professional advice and think they don't even exist in order for us to have that, especially in our Muslim communities. Unfortunately, there isn't such a thing as, you know, going out there and seeking help unless it's gone into the really end stages. What's your thoughts on that?
Again, we go back to culture and tradition. It's like mental health. It's such a taboo topic. Like, God forbid you need a counsellor to help your marriage. Something's got to be wrong. The fact is, and I'm going to lay this out there, 99% of marriages are idealism and it being perfect, when actually at home there's a lot of stuff going on. So I don't care what people say to me. I know that nobody is 100% happy. But if you are, honestly, I will salute you, because that is probably the hardest thing to do. So a lot of us have a keeping up with appearances attitude. We walk around with smiles and we come home and actually we dread going home because we're worried about situations. We're scared to approach our partner about something that's bothering us. And counselors can help. Counselors can help with communication, especially if you have a stubborn husband. You know, if you have a stubborn husband who is incredibly set with his own ideology, he may have a sibling, a best friend that's drilling things into his head, and you think, can you not think for yourself? All those things are going to come up, and I think counsellors can definitely help.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And at the moment, we can actually give some assistance anyways to whoever's watching out there. Please do call in 01924 231 083. And with your experience, Bushra, you've been on The Apprentice. You are a professional working mother. So, you know, basically we have people out there that are struggling with high positions, trying to balance life when it's their careers, their relationship, their children, and you manage to do that to a certain extent. Like, at the end of the day, even with challenges, it is possible, and you do need to seek some sort of like assistance if there are challenges out there. And we're not here to sort of say that you know, people outside are there to, you know, come into your relationship and tell you what's in your household. If you know what a professional does, they really do things according to your own value system, and it can be really useful tool for anybody that's seeking the assistance out there. So when you talk about communication, Bushra, we always say this, and we say this very, you know, sort of like loosely, but I think people don't really understand what does it mean to have that communication. And if you have a sort of like probably an in-law that's thinking one way, and then you have your husband that's thinking in another, and he's trying to be in between, that is quite harsh. Because I've heard stories in my sort of case studies that I can highlight, is that, you know, even if the husband wants to please his wife by helping out, he doesn't want to do it in front of his friends, and he doesn't want to do it in front of his family. So when they come over, the wife is struggling, cooking, cleaning, feeding the kids, but he cannot help her because he's looked upon in a particular way. What sort of advice would you give to families out there that are putting that pressure on and keeping that old sort of mindset and mentality?
Yeah, I mean, look, things are not going to change overnight. In my experience with friends that I know and, you know, etc., I know that things don't change overnight. So being patient is one of those things. I know it can be incredibly tricky. But especially with in-laws, you're not going to really change the way they think. You can only change what I suppose I'd say you can control. So the fact that your husband is in the middle, I think he's probably the first person that you need to address the situation to, vice versa, because it could happen with a husband and his wife, or wife and husband. So just be patient, because sometimes things take time. It may not be an overnight thing. So you might have to keep saying the same thing a few times before it clicks. Because the first time, I know sometimes husbands don't listen, and it might just go over their head. So say, okay, I tried. Don't feel low or down about it. Say, I'm going to try again in a week's time. Reignite that conversation, have it again. But it's really important to understand that you need to articulate yourself very well. Think about the words that you are using. How are you coming across? Because I know as women, if we get frustrated, the frustration comes out before the love. So actually, men are people. They are going to get put off by what you're saying and will stop listening if they see the frustration. So try and, I guess, calm down. Think about what you're going to say and approach it with love and kindness. Come from that position, and he may be more willing to listen, because men have to, I mean, I will throw it back to you, Fahima. We know that we're all made differently. Men are just so much more simple. Complicated. We're more complicated, we're more emotional, and the chances are that it is going to take us that much more of an effort to get him to listen.
Well, to be fair, I think the roles are changing, and men are becoming really sensitive as well nowadays too. And I think that, I do find that a lot as well, actually, because as women are, becoming more stronger, a bit more powerful, having that strength, being given positions and platforms that they weren't allowed to before, or, opportunities like before, I think that also it's the responsibility of the parents and their upbringing. And I think that women are encouraged to, have that education and take it to the next level, but only to just sit, maybe, and think that, we're going to get married and we're going to sit at home. But now that's not the case. But what is it going to be like now for the women that are now career driven, now that are in high positions? And then, men are like finding it really difficult to connect with that level, because they are brought up in households not taught like we sort of evolving over time now. We definitely have evolved in relationships, in our thoughts, in our expectation, right or wrong as it may be, but it's happening. It's really happening. And you see more and more women out there, even single for a longer period of time, because they're actually taking their careers first. We know that at the end of the day, we do need each other for connection. It's also part of our religion to push forward our way of being. So how can you go further with that sort of issue? Okay, so we did have a comment from Shagufta, who says that, and she basically says that, can you repeat that comment? It's great how both individuals do work, but there needs to be some compromise after children, of course. But basically, what she's trying to say, that when there are children, unfortunately, is always left up to the mum to sort of, hold back their careers and be at home. But there needs to be some sort of understanding and compromise from even the male to know that even if, it's the mum that's at home seeing to the child, that she still has a life and she still also wants to pursue her career probably. And it is quite a really difficult balance, I think, when you become a mother and trying to balance career. And this is not just about the spouse now. This is about you having your responsibility as a mum. And then how long do some mums even go back to work? And how do partners even support each other in going back to work? Because some husbands are like, now you've got kids, I don't want you to work till at least they're like, in probably primary school, which is at least like 4 or 5 years. And sometimes that can be detrimental to the women's career if they've taken a particular role that they've studied for, and if they have that much of a gap. And I know of women that have actually had to, because their husbands do not support the fact that they need to go back to work. Like, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I think women ultimately, being mothers, we will make the most sacrifices, right? I believe it's not equal. I think women will always make the most. The only thing that I'd say is that if a woman makes that sacrifice for her relationship, then it's really important for her partner to give her that support, to appreciate that sacrifice, to thank her for that sacrifice. That's the first thing. Also, what we have to remember is if the husband is the one that brings in the higher income and the woman brings less of an income, if he does come forward and say, well, I'm going to support you going back to work, however, I will need to take a hit in my income, which means we cannot drive the car that we drive. Are you prepared to make that change? So it's important to listen to each other. Sometimes what we want may not be conducive to the situation at the time. We may need to wait another year before we go back to work. Not everyone can afford a childminder Monday to Friday. I know that the government helping us to have childcare, but the fact is that how many households are really going to have a nanny from the age of 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
All of those things cost money. So really, as husband and wife, you sit down and you financially plan this properly. And if it results that the husband has the higher income, then it would make more sense for her to wait for her go back to work, I guess. So I think it all depends on the situation. I think a lot of women feel like, you know, I have to change, I have to do all of those things. But actually, maybe he's just not communicating to you what he's thinking. Maybe what I've just said to you about his income being more than yours being an important factor. I mean, there's loads of things to consider. I speak to all sorts of couples and, you know, all of their challenges are really different. So, you know, if those issues are becoming a longer staying problem, that's when you can have the third party to actually listen, because we can always help with that. You know, when a third person listens, you'll get non-biased advice.
What are the challenges that are you hearing now? Do you think lockdown has made a difference? Do you think that during lockdown it's changed? Because I know we're hearing a lot of issues that have been raised during this pandemic, and it's highlighted even more issues that are in the household. So what are your thoughts on that?
I've read so many articles. It's actually been crazy. I think people are like, they don't even know who they're married to. They're like, am I married to you?
Exactly. Or they want to get away, or they just can't handle it. They're like, is that really you? I didn't realize. So it just goes to show how we're living in our households today. Very separate.
Oh my goodness. You know what? I think, of course, I'm not going to say that this is the case for everybody, because everyone's situation is individual. But lockdown has really highlighted make or break. Because
absolutely,
guys, Fahima, think about it. If you're out with your friends at least twice a week, then you're at home all the time with the children, then your husband's at work and comes back, eats, he needs to sleep. Where is the bonding? How to bonding? What do you enjoy together? Do you still go on date nights? And I think lockdown was like I think for lots of people, I think it just opened a can of worms, and people started facing problems, I guess, which they were worried to talk about before lockdown. Yes. So then 100%. This is a spike with this kind of relationship situation where they're like, okay, you know, we've been together for 10 years. What is happening? Because also, as the children get older and you both have time together, that also tells you, do you know this person still? You know, because you red when he met you, but you may like black now. But unless you don't cultivate that and ask those questions, you're not going to know how much each other has changed.
But isn't that scary? Because it just highlights that we are just coexisting most of the time. We are just, you know, living with, absolutely. And it's really scary. And that's why relationships are so important to discuss right now. And we do want that fairy tale, and it can be existent to a certain extent, but we have to create that. We have to be innovative to be able to do that with each other. But actually, we're losing ourselves in our careers, or going, you know, watching football, or, you know, being at the salon too often, or doing your nails, whatever it may be. I'm just generalizing here, but I'm just saying, what is it that's, you know, changed in our households that something like this has actually highlighted more issues than it should be us saying, wow, we've got time to spend together. We've got that, you know, that time that we can actually have, which we don't normally have, but it's actually done the opposite. It's crazy.
It's crazy. I think, you know what we also need to remember is we can't let things get boring. We cannot let things get boring. And I know it's really difficult, especially when children come, because when you have children, they take up a lot of our times. Women may not be grooming themselves or the men as much as we were before. We may have a bad eating habit, so we're not going to the gym, or we're not exercising. So all these different things happen within a relationship. And lockdown, of course, meant more food, more time together, all over the place, and it was like you can't even go anywhere. So what are we going to do? So I totally understand why this cloud has almost come over these people, and they're like, what shall I do now?
Well, to be honest, I would love to hear some of the insights of the viewers and what was your experience and what is your experience. If you want to call in, it's 01924231083, because I'm sure you have lots of stories to share, even if it's just a comment, even if it's just to say hello. Please call in. We would love to hear your voice. I mean, Bushra and I would love to have this conversation just between us, but we would love to include you. This is also your show, your episode to highlight. We have Brother Mohammed from Bradford, who states, what he's saying is that shouldn't women understand men as well as, men understanding women? And I totally agree with you. And we are bringing it both sides. I'm glad you actually made that comment. It's very true, because women do find it very difficult to understand that how much a man has to go out and work, and what is the actual input that they have. And when they come home, and you highlighted something even earlier about us not taking care of ourselves, like how important is that? Because, even as women, we will dress up to go see our girlfriends. We'll put all the makeup on. We'll have the nice dresses, even to go to work. But as soon as we come home, it's like non-existent. And I don't agree with that at all. You need to also do these things at home for your man. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go to Brother Mohammed, who just called in. 100% correct. If you've got to go to work and you are earning more money, and with the whole COVID situation, she should be more understanding. For Brother Mohammed, just keep talking to her. In the beginning, she may not get it, but the more you sort of speak to her nicely, I'm sure she will understand. So hopefully that's a good. And women need to understand men as well at the same time. And then, of course, going back to you, Fahima, gosh, we have to make sure we maintain the way we look. It's really important. And not only for when we go out with our girlfriends, it's really, really important to do it for your spouse as well. But I understand why women stop doing that, and they only get ready when they go out with their friends. And I'll tell you what it is. It's because they feel like their husbands don't appreciate it.
Yes.
So
in some cases, yes.
Yeah, in some cases. So sometimes, maybe somebody will, she'll be getting ready. And instead of him saying, oh, my love, you look beautiful, he'll say, are you sure you want to go out in that top? So the way he'll say it will just put her off. Or he might say, or he's making a compliment, but not really making a compliment. So he might say, oh, I think you should change that top, or maybe wear a cardigan over it. So she's confused. What he's saying is, you look really stunning, and I'm worried because other men are going to see you. So can you put a cardigan over? So it could be little like that. If the woman feels like she's appreciated because of what she's doing, she will do it more. So men, send your missus a little naughty text message. Write her something nice. Goes out with her friends. She's probably having a mocktail. Tell her you miss her. Tell her you can't wait for her to come back home. All these things are really, really important to build that bond,
I think that's so true. And we lose that essence. We really lose that essence. Okay, we have Brother Imran from Bradford. He's commented with what we've just said. He's saying on Facebook, shouldn't the women do the same thing? Shouldn't the women send the husband a cheeky message as well? It shouldn't be a man as well. Of course, I do agree. It has to be both sides. What's your thoughts on this?
Okay, listen, men, right? Let me just say something. Women the same. Women will reciprocate the compliments when you give them out. This isn't you do it first and I'll do it after. Whoever's good at it, start it. This is not about you, it's about a team. So whoever is better at doing that, instigate it. The other
Absolutely. No, that's so true. Brother Imran said,
Can't it be the woman that instigates
can't it be the woman that instigates it, not the man? What do you think?
Ladies, I'm obviously being told that you're not texting enough. So stop chatting to your friends and send him a message. No, I totally agree. I think women are.
We've got Sister Alicia who's saying, shouldn't the couple's parents take also an active role in having the relationship better itself? Do you think after marriage that, in-laws or parents can actually get involved?
Outside a little bit, don't get too involved, but I don't think it's solely their responsibility. I think once you're an adult yourself in your relationship, it is your responsibility. But if the in-laws are doing something detrimental, then just don't do that and just step out of it. It's probably easier not to be involved.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I mean, again, I would like to thank everyone that's streaming and watching from all the platforms and all your comments. I really appreciate it. Whether you're streaming on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, live on Sky. Again, I want to thank you all for participating, for supporting. Please do go over to SingleMuslim.com app, and that's where you can find your spouse. There's lots of interaction happening there as well, where you can actually find your match, because I know a lot of people are struggling to find people that are available to them, and that's an amazing platform where things have happened. If you do want to call into the studio, is 01924 231 083. It's an amazing way to meet people and also to be here. We have a cheeky question from Brother Khalid from Cardiff. He's asking if, what was that? If Oh, if Bushra, are you on SingleMuslim.com?
Oh my God. Is that someone asking? No, I'm not. I'm not on SingleMuslim.com, but that's really nice of you to ask.
That's quite flattering. Unfortunately, she is not. So if there's any other questions, please do call in. This is really important. I know that we're keeping it quite lighthearted, but there are some real issues out there with regards to relationships breaking because there isn't enough support from each other. And we just want to highlight this because at the end of the day, it is causing drift when we want to bring people together so that they can have more amazing relationships, they can have more understanding. And remember, it does filter onto the children, it does filter onto the rest of the family, and onto your own mood as well. I think it's really important, as we said, to know yourself and to be the best version of yourself before you even expect it from somebody else. How do you maintain, being that sort of like busy entrepreneur and being your best self at home?
Oh, how do I maintain that? You know what? It's a work.
How would one maintain it? It doesn't have to be, your own or experience all the time.
You know what? It's for me, what I do is I know that this is a growing phase. I think a lot of my growing I'm doing now in my 30s. Can I say that? In my 30s, and I did when I was in my 20s. And I think what it is I think we've got to realize that we're never, ever going to be perfect. However, we can be or try to be the best, which means re-educating ourselves, reading books, listening to podcasts, going out there, having experiences and learning from them, because ultimately we want to be the best. We need to know what we like, what our dislikes are. How can we make the other person feel good about themselves, because being in a relationship is ultimately teamwork. We want a fulfilling relationship. This isn't something that's going to just change overnight. These are long of fulfillment. So how and what can you do to continue doing that? And that takes two people always. One person cannot do that on their own. It has to take the other person as well. So yeah, always go back to yourself. Think about how you want to be loved. And if that's how you want to be loved, think about how your partner wants to be loved, because they want the love too. And it's it's obviously like a give and take. Don't always take, because eventually the person will not have anything left.
Yeah, no, of course. It's really important to have that interaction between the couples. We've got an anonymous call. Oh, that's a very interesting question. Is it sort of an issue if the wife is older than the husband? I know now in Hollywood and Bollywood, it might be quite normal, but in everyday sort of life, how do you see that? I mean, do you think women will go for younger men?
You know what? I actually believe that a trend is happening, or should I not call it a trend? I believe that women are becoming more attractive. And I think the reason why they are is because we have this sudden surge of social media. A lot of the younger girls are appearing to look older, but once the man meets her, she's actually much more immature than he had believed because she's younger than what she looks. And I think men are attractive to more kind of career driven, independent women because they are kind of thinking like that themselves. And I think because the dynamics are changing, in 10 years' time, Fahima, we are going to see a big, big change. And if the lady is older than you know what? I think it's a bonus. I do not think it's an issue at all, especially when it comes to age. I think we should look beyond that. This is about two people who perhaps love each other, who are best friends, that want the best life, and how do they build that?
But what do you think would be the age gap? Would it be like, do you think like over 10 years is too much, or do you think 5 years? What would be the cap, do you think, on a women being older? And also, do you think that now because men can't keep up, some of them can't keep up, that they're quite happy to say, you know what, I'm just going to have a sugar mama over here?
Yeah, I think you've got to be serious. You've got to understand who your partner is going to be. You know what? I don't want to go into specifics of numbers because it's individual again to that person. But if there's an age gap of 20 years, think about, do you guys have children? Does she have children from another marriage? Does he have children from a previous marriage? There's so many things to think about, but ultimately the end goals are always the same. Two people coming together because they have love between them and they want to live a fulfilling and happy life. And whether that is a gap or a 2-year age gap, I don't think it really matters anymore.
Okay, that's so true. You know what? We've come so quickly towards the end of the show, and I just want to know, just before we go, how you've kind of managed your career and family priorities, and just a quick takeaway for the audience before we end.
Okay, so I think it's definitely a challenge always. I'm never ever thinking it's going to be easy. I know it's difficult, but I'm super organized. I'm incredibly vigilant, in the terms of I've got my children, how am I going to sort them out? So, I mean, the key thing is being consistent, being organized, and honestly having self-belief, like believe in your, everything is achievable, and have good family and friends around you. You need lots of support. If you've got any toxicity, get rid of it. You do not need anything toxic in your life. Just have happy people that love you, people that care about you, and just enjoy yourself. Because, I mean, Fahima, you probably know, we know that life is not promised, so we do the best that we can be every day and just take each day at a time.
No, that's very vital information. And I think it's really important that we hear from successful women like yourself that it can be balanced, and you can actually be a mom, and you can be at home, and you can be with family and have a life. I just want to say again, thank you so much for your time. Everything that you said, I hope there's food for thought for everybody. It's been quiet on the phones, but I'm sure that everyone will take away something. I know that unfortunately we didn't have any callers come in today, but maybe they're a bit shy or blown away by the fact that you are so gorgeous today and giving your time. I really appreciate it, by the way. I really do, again, apologize that, if there was any technical issues, but hopefully we will see that we will see you in the next episode. But I just want to thank everyone that streamed in from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, live on Sky, and all of those that have given your comments and given all your insights on your actual on these platforms. I just want to also say that Bushra, it's been absolutely amazing to hear how positive that we can be as women today, career driven, and we can have that balance. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. We've got 5 seconds. What would you like to say quickly to these women out there?
Ladies, you're smashing it. Honestly, just keep doing what you're doing. Everything is possible. Don't let anyone tell you any different. Thank you, Fahima. It's been amazing, honestly.
No, thank you. And I appreciate everyone that's come on and watching today. We will see you soon in the next show. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.